You know, an operation like this does have a certain cost attached.
What if there was a deadly, toxic substance harvested by man?
42-year-old male found down.
NG to open barrel.
Capable of killing thousands of people in a single day.
In the last 24 hours, about 8,000 people just got 6 feet shorter.
What if someone manufactured this substance in massive quantities?
She's seizing.
Let's do them now.
And a select group of people knew about it.
A whole lot of people are dying. A lot of the people are making money off of it.
Then what if the knowledge began to leak out?
Someone's gone public.
Get creative with it.
Mr. Senator, there's no conclusive evidence.
I have the death toll figures right here.
Would anyone believe it?
Just don't wipe out a population the size of Manhattan and wake up and play golf the next day.
Watch me.
I'm not gonna stick around and become the spike on somebody's bar graph.
Dude, you watch way too many movies.
This is not a movie.
Cigarettes and smokeless tobacco are harmful, highly addictive, and aggressively marketed to our young people. The evidence is overwhelming, and the threat is immediate.
Tonight we pose a few ethical questions. How much should we blame the smoker and not the smoke?
The strict pharmacological definition of addiction involves 3 different criteria. They are intoxication, physical dependence, and tolerance.
The thing is, I don't smoke because I think I'm cool, you know? I smoke because I'm stuck on it.
Mr. Congressman, I do not want my children to smoke. I do not want your children to smoke or anyone else's children to smoke.
Thank you.
I want adults to smoke.
There's overwhelming evidence that the cigarettes that you all make bring misery and disease to thousands of children across America.
Liggett does not believe that there is any such thing as an addicting level of nicotine in cigarettes.
Do you understand how isolated you are in that belief from the entire scientific community?
I do, sir.
If for the first time somebody brought to the American shores tobacco containing nicotine and we had a package insert that told us everything that we know about it, the government would take steps to ban it today, and if they didn't, there'd be a revolution in the country.
Executive who told tobacco secrets.
To present the Breath of Life Award to Dr. Jeffrey Wagon.
The man called research.
The highest-ranking executive ever to speak out against the tobacco business.
Tobacco industry whistleblower tells truth about cigarettes.
Weird truth. A generation is tired of being lied to about tobacco. Tired of replacing the 1,000 customers tobacco kills every day. Tired of being a target. Today, tobacco becomes our target.
What did I lose? I lost the family.
I'm not going to be like, oh, that's not going to happen to me. It's like exactly what's going to happen to me.
The real thing that we were doing here was presenting a voice from inside the industry.
Tobacco industry insider Jeffrey Wigand reveals what it was like making a decision that could have cost him his life.
He had 2 death threats.
Was there a bullet found in your mailbox?
Oh, certainly.
I think the threatening of my children, the bullet in the mailbox, were all meant to intimidate.
What would you do?
Jeffrey Wagon. Dr. Jeffrey Wagon.
Dr. Jeffrey Wagon.
We are far from getting the work done, but we have many, many things to do.
Tail sticks? Tail sticks. Okay, house lights up, please. That's a wrap on our film set at the gates clean. Dr. Wagon. Thank you very much.
What would you do? It's easy for most people to answer, especially if they're never held accountable for their actions. Bravado bursts from the seams of our society, especially when espousing merely hollow words. We all rely on the media to furnish us with information. We believe it's true for the most part. But as we just witnessed, along with the opening of the cinema trailer's public service announcement, not all is as it appears. Just like the movies, reality can be easily altered. Altered especially when there's greed involved, when big business puts profits over people, as happens with the tobacco industry.
Liggett does not believe that there is any such thing as an addicting level of nicotine in cigarettes, or that cigarettes are addictive like heroin or cocaine, as has been alleged. In fact, to equate cigarette smoking with actual hard drug addiction ignores the significant differences between them. It also blinks at reality.
Even after a historic 1964 Surgeon General's report definitively linked for the first time smoking to heart disease, lung cancer, and other terrible diseases, the tobacco industry continued to adamantly deny any adverse effects from smoking. The 7 CEOs of Big Tobacco even testified before Congress, swearing nicotine was not addictive, that smoking was no more dangerous than eating Twinkies. Well, we obviously now know the truth. And yet still today, the tobacco industry continues to spend more than $6 billion a year promoting and advertising a product that, when used as intended, kills.
The tobacco industry is one of the respectable American industries that make up American commerce. It acts responsibly in its business practices, and it produces a product recognized worldwide for its quality.
But there was one man who worked on the inside who was brave enough to risk everything to try and hold the tobacco industry accountable. His name, Dr. Jeffrey Wigand. In 1988, Brown & Williamson Tobacco Corporation hired Dr. Wigand to lead a team of scientists in the creation of a safer cigarette. But quickly, Dr. Wigand realized that Brown & Williamson never really intended for him to make a safer cigarette. Why? Because that would imply that their original cigarettes were unsafe. When Dr. Wigand insisted the company address his negative findings, Brown & Williamson not only fired him, they sued him for going public. Dr. Wigand was vilified in the press. He not only endured death threats and attacks against his character, he lost his livelihood, not to mention his family. And yet nothing lessened his resolve. He courageously chose to testify against the big tobacco industries in a Mississippi courtroom, and he set a precedent for major change. His testimony ultimately forced the tobacco industry to settle lawsuits across the country totaling more than $248 billion. It's an amazing story of corporate deception and disregard for public health and safety. It's an amazing story of one man's courage to take a stand and make a difference. Hollywood even made a movie about it called The Insider, nominated for 7 Academy Awards. Well, now, in Secrets Through the Smoke, hear firsthand from the real insider, on how one man's courage to take a stand and take on the tobacco industry changed the way they do business.
Lisa, she can help you with your jacket.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks, Lisa.
What is it? What is it?
Knowing the risk of going public with your discoveries, what was the deciding factor that made you realize that you could no longer stay quiet like everybody else?
Well, I don't think there is a single factor, for one. I think the two overwhelming factors that were the driving force behind the decision. One was the overriding interest in public health and safety, and I think that combined with the search for the truth, and the truth being how the industry works inside versus how the industry portrays itself to the public. And I think those are the two factors that probably really one of the driving force between making the decision and doing what I did.
Wow. Thanks a lot. Thanks for taking
Thanks,
time.
Bob.
Okay, this is going to be your mark, and we're ready to go. So 3, 2.
Good morning, guys. My name's Jeff Wigand. To give you a little bit of background, I spent about 4.5 years in the tobacco industry as the head of research and development for the nation's 3rd largest tobacco company, which is part of the world's 2nd largest tobacco company. And I'm here today to try to help answer some of your questions dealing with tobacco, smoking and health, how the tobacco industry works, and try to give you an understanding of what the truth is about how the industry works inside versus what it says outside. So do we have some questions here?
Dr. Wagon, what are the ingredients in cigarettes and why don't more people know about them?
First of all, the industry nurtures a perception that a tobacco product or a cigarette is a natural product, sort of grown in the ground, wrapped in paper, and then smoked. No, it's far from that. It's a meticulously engineered, scientifically understood product in which there are over 600 additives are used intentionally that is added to tobacco to either facilitate the process of smoking or to maintain the addiction. And actually what a cigarette is nothing but a nicotine delivery device. And what happens is the industry wants to make sure that that nicotine delivery device comes easy to somebody. So they add ingredients like cocoa, licorice, honey, ammonia, toilet bowl cleaner, all to engage the process of one, allowing somebody to ameliorate the harshness of smoking, but they, at the same time, get their dose of nicotine. And so there's over 600 of these additives used. Many of you don't know. There are also additives that are not added intentionally. Additives that come from growing the tobacco, treating the tobacco with pesticides. The contaminants that you would normally find in the soil get transferred to the plant. And we have evidence that shows that when Chernobyl melted down in Russia, the nuclear plant, we had tobacco that was contaminated with a radioactive substance called plutonium-210. Pesticides, arsenic, all that stuff that comes into tobacco, comes into the soil, are additives that are added on. So it is meticulously engineered, it's scientifically understood, and it is a device to deliver nicotine in the least contentious way. But this is the only product we know that, when used as intended, kills 430,000 people a year and addicts over 3,000 kids a day.
Plutonium-210. Plutonium-210. Used to make nuclear bombs. What? In a cigarette? That's what it is. Rat poison. Rat poison. Propylene glycol. Glycol. I don't know. Formaldehyde. I can't even pronounce it.
every cigarette is doing you damage. This is part of an aorta, the main artery from the heart. Smoking makes artery walls sticky and collect dangerous fatty deposits. This much was found stuck to the aorta wall of a smoker, age 32.
What about natural cigarettes?
Every cigarette is doing you damage.
Are they better for you?
When you burn a cigarette, whether it's a natural cigarette or a chemically engineered cigarette, it generates combustion products, tar, black stuff. That black stuff, whether it is in an engineered cigarette or in a natural cigarette, still contains between 4,000 to 8,000 chemical compounds. Most of those chemical compounds you can't legally bury in your garbage pits because they're so toxic. They have chemical compounds such as formaldehyde. You know what formaldehyde's for? It's an embalming fluid. We preserve rats and dogs and cats for the laboratory with that. Carbon monoxide comes out of the tailpipes of cars. Whether it's in a natural cigarette, engineered cigarette, guess what? It's still there. Lots of chemicals that come out that are very toxic. Formaldehyde, carbon monoxide. One of the most potent ones is a reaction between some of the chemicals that are used for fertilizer and the nicotine that create what's the most potent form of carcinogen in tobacco smoke and tobacco is called the nitrosamines. Those are the bad actors, the worst bad actors. So whether you're smoking a natural cigarette or you're smoking an engineered cigarette or a light cigarette or a menthol cigarette, guess what? You're getting all these chemical compounds to feed an addiction. So what you're getting is nicotine with lots of negative baggage called tar. So there is no safety in smoking a natural product or smoking an engineered product.
Boys, come in. Check.
Check. 1, 2. Quiet on the set, please.
Somebody smoking in here?
Come on, who's smoking? Hey, let's clear the air. I'm doing just fine.
So what's the deal with secondhand smoke? I mean, is it really dangerous?
Secondhand smoke forces somebody to smoke when they choose not to smoke. Some of them may be children who are going with their parents into an environment, but those who are not as fortunate as some of us, who have to provide for their family by working in environments where now they're exposed to something they choose not to be exposed. Secondhand smoke is a Class A carcinogen. So it's just as bad as smoking, and it's just something you choose not to do that you're forced to do because somebody else is doing it.
Cigarettes gave me lung cancer. I'll never forget the day I found out. I went in for a chest x-ray because I felt this bump. My doctor called that evening to schedule a CAT scan in the morning. They found 2 inoperable tumors. My doctor said it was caused by cigarettes. I couldn't believe it. I'd never smoked.
So what are you going to get Zach for Valentine's Day?
Becca and Karen are twins, identical in every way, but one.
Make sure you stick your hand way out the window.
I'm Becca, and I'm 18, and I smoke about a pack a day.
Is it far enough out for you? I'm Karen, I'm 18, and I'm a non-smoker. No.
I started smoking about 3 years ago, and I've never seriously tried to quit. As crazy as that may sound, it's almost true that smoking has more advantages than disadvantages. I mean, day-to-day life.
To measure how smoking might already be making them different from one another, The twins volunteered to be tested at Lutheran Medical Center in Denver, Colorado. They were tested for lung capacity.
Karen, as we might guess, since you have been a non-smoker and you're young, your tests are unequivocally normal.
Blast it out.
Becca, your tests are technically within the normal range, but they do show some signs of early small airways disease.
Then Becca got a chance to see how smoking just one cigarette affects her body.
That will cause the skin temperature to drop.
With each drag, the nicotine in the cigarette begins to constrict Becca's circulation. Infrared pictures of her hand show the changes instantly.
You can see the blueness occurring up in her index finger now. That temperature drop is quite significant already.
In the time it takes to smoke one cigarette, Becca's hand turns from a healthy red to an icy blue.
Notice we're even getting a little purple in the tips of your fingers, which is down near the bottom of our scale. Now the non-smoker, if they would wiggle their hands, yeah, we know who it is. Your oxygen level has been dramatically reduced, and that's going to affect your entire body. Get real tight together if you could. Oh, look at our cold nose.
Keep in there for as long as you can take it.
Oh, man. There is one test left. Dipping their hands in ice water, the twins witness their body's ability to recover and heal itself. A laser imager provides instant pictures of the blood flow to the girl's hands and skin. The smoker is on the left, the non-smoker on the right.
You should see an increase in both now, coming out of the cold water.
Being a healthy non-smoker, Karen's hand returns to normal as soon as the ice water is removed.
Look at how fast yours came back.
5 minutes later, Becca shows no sign of recovering.
You hear about lung disease and you hear about heart disease, but you don't hear about blood flow or, I mean, that's something that takes place right now. I mean, you know, lung cancer could be in your future, but right now,
You can't even warm up after being cold.
This is Timothy V. Hartnett, former president of a major tobacco firm and chairman of the Industry Research Committee.
I would like to quote from a statement released at the time the Tobacco Industry Research Committee was formed. At that time, we stated, "We accept an interest in people's health as a basic responsibility paramount to every other consideration in our business." And that's where we stand today.
Today what they do is they find some third party to attack, like the Restaurant Manufacturers Association, the Smokers Alliance. These are all front groups for the industry to do their bidding. They want it to look more pristine today. They want to act more responsible in a controversial environment. They're still doing the same chicanery, the same trickery, the same duping, the same manipulation. They're still controlling the strings. They are paying for these third parties to do what they're doing at their bidding. Code words are ways the industry uses not to say things that we normally would say, and to prevent people, when they read the documents that they see, that, by the way, there have been millions and millions of pages of documents produced as a result of the litigation that started in Mississippi and ended with the settlement. But in these documents, we find the words such as, referred to as zephyr. What is a zephyr? Zephyr is a light breeze, has absolutely no connectivity to what it really means, cancer. So the industry continues to use in their documents code words. If I told you what Hamlet was, what would you say to me? Hamlet was an actor in a Shakespeare play. But Hamlet was the code word for a fire-safe cigarette developed by Philip Morris in 1986. Lots of code words. Zephyr, Hamlet, table, accord, root, lots of code words. And that helps disguise what the true meaning of the documents and allows people who are non-educated in the tobacco science, which is pretty much kept within the companies, to be able to effectively read the documents. So you need a taxonomy, you need a map that sometimes takes the code words and translate them into real words.
Yes, young lady.
You were talking about earlier a fire safe cigarette. Who made that?
Philip Morris made it in 1986, and I will tell you in January of 2000, guess who's marketing a fire safe cigarette all of a sudden again? Philip Morris.
Why would they not bring it out? I mean, if that's the case, Philip Morris is, he's just as guilty. He's considered killing my two cousins.
You betcha.
They were only 4 and 5, and a cigarette fell on the floor while my aunt was sleeping, and the house caught on fire. They were found in a closet hugging each other. He killed them in a sense.
Yep.
Why would they not bring it out?
That's a question I think you would ask Philip Morris.
My house is burning, and you are coming in. I want to try and save you, but I can't begin. What have I done? And I've come unstrung. This isn't who I want to be. I've lost the better half of me. Someday I'm gonna make this up to you. Someday.
Do you think this industry intentionally tries to undermine science that shows tobacco use to be dangerous? And if so, how?
I think what we have seen is the industry today trying to say, and I mean trying, that nicotine's addictive and that smoking kills you. Trying to say. Well, have they really, really said that? And the answer to that, I believe, is no. They haven't really unequivocally stated it.
Let me begin my questioning on the matter of whether or not nicotine is addictive. Let me ask you first, and I'd like to just go down the row, whether each of you believes that nicotine is not addictive. I heard virtually all of you touch on it, and just yes or no. Do you believe nicotine is not addictive?
I believe nicotine is not addictive, yes.
Mr. Johnston.
Congressman, cigarettes and nicotine clearly do not meet the classic definitions of addiction. There is no intoxication.
We'll take that as a no, and again, time is short. If you could just, I think each of you believe nicotine is not addictive. We just would like to have this for the record.
I don't believe that nicotine or our products are addictive.
I believe nicotine is not addictive.
I believe that nicotine is not addictive.
I believe that nicotine is not addictive.
And I too believe that nicotine is not addictive.
They say in public that now they're more responsible. They're going to admit to all their past misbehavior because they knew in the 1950s that nicotine was addictive. Did they tell you then? Have they really said today that nicotine's addictive, how addictive it is, what limited amounts take you to become addictive, and what's the consequence of it? The industry had a choice in 1950 to share this information with the healthcare community. What do? They created obfuscation of the science, whether it was the science of addiction, the science of smoking and health, or the impact of secondhand smoke. They buried it. Why? Because the sales and profits came above and beyond their responsibility to public health and safety.
Do tobacco companies do their own research? And if they do, are the results reliable?
Pharmacological definition of addiction involves 3 different criteria. They are intoxication, physical dependence, and tolerance. And to my knowledge, there is no evidence that nicotine or cigarette smoking plays in any of these definitions.
The industry had a golden opportunity before the Surgeon General's report in 1964 to share that nicotine was addictive. They knew it. To share what they knew about smoking and health, not only from their own testing, but what they did through contract research. What they chose to do is use science to obfuscate the truth.
Dr. Little, you are chairman of the Scientific Advisory Board of the Tobacco Industry Research Committee. What is the purpose of the committee?
Well, the purpose of the committee is to study in every possible way the relations between smoking and human health.
Have any cancer-causing agents been identified in cigarettes?
No, none whatever, either in cigarettes or in any product of smoking as such.
They chose to use science to create doubt rather than using science for the search for truth. And so their research findings, whether they be behavioral science, that is how 11-year-olds behave, how 16-year-olds behave, which ultimately became the way they designed and developed their advertising program to target children. They did all that research. They have not shared it anyway. Is it reliable? Yeah. This is a $45 billion business that's developed from an intrinsic understanding of behavioral science. That's how young women behave, how young boys behave, to convince people, to dupe people that smoking's cool. That came out of behavioral science.
Sell your soul for a pack of lies.
For decades, the tobacco companies have been exempt from the standards of responsibility and accountability that apply to all other American corporations. Companies that sell aspirin, cars, and soda are all held to strict standards when they cause harm. This hearing marks the beginning of a new relationship between Congress and the tobacco companies. The old rules are out. The standards that apply to every other company is in.
Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Please consider yourself to be under oath.
Do you agree that people are dying prematurely as a result of smoking cigarettes?
No, sir, I do not.
You do not?
I do not.
Your position is that you don't know anything about the relationship.
That I don't know.
Is that correct, even though you've worked in this area for some time?
No, I didn't say that. I said that I do not know whether.
I met the devil in disguise with his rainbow wings and a pack of lies. I had my suspicions, but they were ignored. Far away, the angel cries. How far away the angel sings. Sell your soul for a pack of lies. Don't sell your soul. No, no.
I had my first cigarette in 8th grade, and I just remember feeling really lightheaded and feeling like I was gonna throw up.
I had my first cigarette when I was in 7th grade.
We used to just go after school and buy a pack, and just smoke on the corner just so everybody would see us.
I definitely started smoking because, I thought it was cool. It was like the whole image.
There was definitely a lot of peer pressure because, be like, why don't you just have a cigarette with us?
I was doing something that my parents didn't want me to do. It was almost like feeling like a rebel or something,
I'm like, I'm only going to have a couple of cigarettes and I'll never get hooked until it became a pack a day.
What are some programs that work to reduce smoking? And which of these makes big tobacco the most nervous?
Well, we know lots of things, okay? First of all, we know there's a program called Best Practices, which was developed by CDC, which really addresses what are the best things you can do to counter the advertising, to make sure there's limited access to underage children, to make sure there's cessation programs, make sure there are education programs. The industry has spent 5 decades communicating to people that smoking's good for you. We know when we took counter-advertising on, even in the TV days, that when we had counter-advertising, the dramatic effect was people were getting what? The truth.
In my life, there are two people in my family who've quit smoking. Me and my dad. For me, it took 7 years. Nothing worked. When I finally did quit for good, I knew it was one of the biggest accomplishments of my life. My dad, it was different for him. He stopped December 1996.
We now know that if we counter-advertise, we can influence people to do and see the true light. And that's part of it. So one is counter-advertising. Two is education in the school systems. Education in the school systems, K through 12 and into college. We do limited education today. Okay? We don't continue on. We seem to do the education very effectively up through about grade 6, and then we kind of stop. Part of education deals with the ability to critically analyze it, understand it, and make good, healthy, responsible decisions. Now, are we doing all we can do? Compliance. Should a child be able to go into a store and buy a pack of cigarettes? No. The legal age in most states is 18 above. So compliance is an issue. Price is an issue. As you raise the price, guess what happens to youth users? It goes down. The other thing is the whole issue of how do we get this product controlled? What can they say in advertising? Should you know what's in your pack of cigarettes? So we need some labeling. We need some clear technical understanding. That's just the same thing you would find on the back of your Twinkies.
The allegation that smoking cigarettes is addictive is part of a growing and disturbing trend that has destroyed the meaning of the term by characterizing virtually any enjoyable activity as addictive, whether it's eating sweets, drinking coffee, playing video games, or watching TV.
Of course, the industry said that smoking is no more dangerous than eating Twinkies. Well, you read the back of the label of Twinkies, guess what you see? What coloring is used, flour, starch, sugars, and all. Turn over your pack of cigarettes, what do you see? You don't see any of it. So there's lots of things to do. Which really probably gets me to the next issue is the settlement dollars. The settlement came out of the states suing the tobacco industry to recoup decades and decades of people getting sick as kids, and then the states paying for their health care. That settlement is roughly about $246 to $48 billion paid over 25 years. That came from the states paying for the health care of children that were addicted and later in life paid the price. What some of the states are doing is taking and building in roads and bridges and all sorts of different things and not using that money, which was earmarked at least spiritually and by tenor, to be the inheritance of the children. So there's lots of things, but we know exactly what we think works. Best practices from the CDC, we know how that's implemented, we know how to implement it, we know what the effects are, we need to put it in place, which is roughly 20% of the over $240 billion. We're not spending anywhere near that. And it's wasting, I believe, my opinion, is wasting the children's inheritance to make healthy, responsible choices for a better, healthier future.
This morning in your written statement and your oral statement, you compared cigarettes to coffee, tea, sweets, sugar, warm milk, cheese, chocolate, and Twinkies. That's quite a list. I'm struck by what I think is a calculated attempt to trivialize the devastating health impacts of your product. The difference between cigarettes and Twinkies and the other products you mentioned is death.
How does the industry make smoking seem so cool and hip and still be socially acceptable?
What the industry portrays is the glamour of something that is very unrealistic, but directs it towards people who are most influenced with it. We know that the top 3 brands that are advertised and glamorized are the top 3 brands that are smoked by kids. The industry needs 3,000 kids a day to get addicted, to offset those that stop smoking permanently.
Maybe they'll get to your little brother or sister, or maybe they'll get to the kid down the block. But one thing's perfectly clear to me. The tobacco companies are after children. Why? Because tobacco companies know that 90% of smokers start as children before they know better. I'm Victor Crawford. I was a tobacco lobbyist for 5 years, so I know how tobacco companies work. I lied. And I'm sorry.
And we also know that 85% of those who smoke today all started well before the age of 18. So they need to get you hooked early. In fact, the mantra within the industry is that we hook them young, we hook them for life. And we know today that's the result of giving image. Go to the movies. What do you see? A heroine or a hero smoking. Did you ever see in an ad somebody unhealthy? Did you ever see anybody in an ad with yellow teeth? Did you ever see anybody gasping for breath? Since the settlement, the industry has increased its spending in advertising and promotion to almost $7 billion. Again, we know there's a direct correlation between advertising and use. And who are the targets? I have a 13-year-old daughter who would love to be thin, blue eyes, blonde hair, and all of it, because that's the imagery we've portrayed. And the industry manipulates them into that with slogans such as, have a cigarette rather than a sweet. What's the message there? So the industry continues to manipulate through its advertising and promotion. They may not have the billboards anymore. They might not have Joe Camel anymore. They might not have Bob the Cowboy. They continue to use their advertising and promotion machinery to continue to induce and dupe people into a product, when used as intended, kills you.
We're now entering Marlboro country. Land of the cowboy. Hey, what's up? We're here to see the Cowboys. Who's that?
The Marlboro Man.
Marlboro Man.
Yeah, well, he passed away some time ago.
He's dead?
He passed away?
Yeah. Is his horse still alive or anything? No.
No Cowboys, no nothing? No. Did you give us directions maybe to the grave?
There's no guy.
All the way to cowboy country. There's no cowboy.
And he's dead.
And I wonder what killed him.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, the tobacco industry has a very serious multi-billion-dollar problem. We need more cigarette smokers, pure and simple. Every day, 2,000 Americans stop smoking, and another 1,100 also quit. Actually, technically, they die. That means that this business needs 3,000 fresh new volunteers every day. So, forget about all that. Cancer, heart disease, emphysema, stroke stuff. Gentlemen, we're not in this business for our health.
One of the executives from R.J. Reynolds came over and said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm smoking." They said, "Well, you still smoking that stuff?" And I said, "Yeah." And I said, "How come you guys from R.J. Reynolds don't smoke?" And he turned to me and he said, "We don't smoke the we just sell it. We reserve the right to smoke for the young, the poor, the black, and the stupid."
Yes.
Does that mean the fight is over?
No. We have lots more to do. Lots more in terms of getting more youth involved. Lots more to do to get more people involved in tobacco control and activism. We have much more to do to keep the truth out there. Shining the light on the truth will keep this industry where it belongs. Because as we talk and we now uncover this, what is the industry doing? They're continuing to polish up the tarnish. We're going to now help battered women. We're now going to feed the hungry, clothe the naked, give to the arts, all to do what? To polish up an image of misbehavior so they look better.
How do I look?
Very good.
What is the motivating force? Is the motivating force now they have an overwhelming concern for public health and safety? And now the settlement draws them to do new and better things? No. Not one iota. They're driven by their stock depreciation and driven by what's going to happen in the future. If we don't stop tobacco use on a worldwide basis, the estimates are by the year 2010, 10 million people will be dying from tobacco-related diseases. More so than AIDS, suicides, car accidents, fires, all of them combined together do not equal the death toll taken by the most preventable form of disease we have, tobacco use. So, fight's just beginning.
And I just think the corporations that make millions and millions and millions of dollars have got an obligation to the people they serve, and it's more than giving them a satisfactory smoke.
They choose not to do the right thing, almost consciously, to avoid litigation, to avoid changing a product.
Smoldering cigarettes left in beds or couches are the single biggest cause of fire deaths.
By the year 2025, 500 million people will die of smoking. Now, that's a Vietnam War every day for 27 years. That's the Titanic sinking every 27 minutes for 27 years.
Every year and a half, cigarettes kill as many Americans as all the wars of this century. Where are the protests, the demonstrations?
I had my first cigarette when I was 13. When I found out how bad it was, I tried to quit. But I couldn't. They say nicotine isn't addictive. How can they say that?
If I take nicotine and put it in a patch, if I put it in the gum, if I put it in an inhaler, that's regulated by the FDA. If I come out with a product to help people quit smoking, whether it contains nicotine or not, that's regulated by the FDA. But if I take nicotine and put it in its most dangerous form, which is a cigarette, because people light it up, it gets into their brain within 7 or 8 seconds. For some reason, the most dangerous form of nicotine is totally unregulated in any way by the United States government.
This was no child's play that Jeffrey Wigand was involved in. This was hardball in the hardest kind of fashion that you can imagine.
There is an amazing movie out right now called The Insider. It's directed by Michael Mann, starring Al Pacino and Russell Crowe. And it is about the real-life story of a man named Jeffrey Wigand. It is, in my opinion, the best movie I've seen in the last 10 years. It is a socially relevant and poignant film, and it changed the course of America. It really did, the bravery and courage of the man Jeffrey Wigand.
The attorneys general have now before them a tobacco settlement proposal that would provide the states with the largest financial recovery in the history of the world.
The last thing the tobacco companies want is for you to know how many poisonous chemicals there are in cigarettes. I'm Patrick Reynolds, the grandson of R.J. Reynolds. My family's name is printed on the side of 7 billion packs of cigarettes every year. Why am I telling you this? Because I want my family to be on the right side for a change.
Thank you all for all your questions, your time. It's been great. Take this information and go out and make a difference. Good luck.
Dr. Jeffrey Wigand does not like to be called a hero, but clearly the history books will define him as such and tell his inspiring story of courage. The story of how one man sacrificed a great deal, paid a high price to expose corporate deception in the tobacco industry, all in an effort to protect the public health and try and save lives. We hope by sharing Dr. Wigand's story with you, we all realize how one person can make such a difference. As Dr. Wagon would say, one day at a time, one child at a time.
All of you share with us a distressing lack of knowledge about how to convince people, particularly young people, not only that cigarettes may kill them,
but that they should do something about it. I'm going to be very big with the cigarette companies at the end of this speech.
Hi, Bob. This is Gwendolyn from Truth. See, my friends have started smoking, and I kind of wanted to try it too, but I want to make sure I get the right brand of cigarettes to really look cool. So I thought I would call you because you'd be the best person to tell me.
Why is that?
Aren't you the account executive?
What I would suggest
Yeah.
is that you guys find something better to do with your time.
Well, why don't you find something better to do with your advertisement, like telling the truth sometimes? You know what, Bob? Do you know that 1,000 people dying every day from cigarette smoking?
Do you know that hundreds of thousands of people die because they drive cars too fast?
More people die from cigarette smoking, right, and related illnesses than they die from AIDS, murder, suicide, alcohol, and drugs, and accidents altogether.
Well, I mean, it's not my problem. Have a nice weekend. Goodbye.
Hello? What? Sir? Excuse me, Mr. Bob?
Bob!
Publishing.
Yes, could you please connect me to your advertising sales department?
What magazine?
Please. Yes, sir. My name is Josh, and I'm here with a friend of mine named Jared. And I was wondering, about what percentage is your youth readership?
I need to know who Josh is exactly. How you're asking?
I'm with an organization called Truth. I'm just doing a little research about tobacco advertising. I was wondering, do you have any youth readership at all? I mean,
of course we do.
Why do you accept tobacco advertising when you have that kind of a youth readership?
You could at least put in a couple anti-tobacco ads to
We're all
counter it.
for anti-tobacco ads.
Do you think that your magazine would be interested in running some anti-tobacco advertising as a public service, perhaps?
No.
Why not?
Because we're in this business to make money.